Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from one of Spain's most revered saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, a spirited doctor of the Church. Join me, Amy Thomas, once a week as we read from Saint Teresa's book, The Interior Castle. Hello, Catholic pilgrims. Welcome to the third chapter of the fourth mansion. Our readings are starting to get very heavy, so I urge you to not get frustrated if you don't understand everything Saint Teresa is saying right away. Each time I prepare for this podcast, the first read over never goes very well. Then I sit with it, leave it for a bit, come back and read it again, and things start to develop for me. So don't get frustrated if while I'm reading it through initially for you, you feel lost. I think that's pretty normal, and I also think that's why a lot of people stop reading more challenging books like this. Growing up Protestant, I was always taught to close my eyes when I prayed. When I joined the Catholic Church, I noticed that most people didn't. When I was a kid, whenever the congregation prayed the Lord's Prayer, as we called it then, we all bowed our heads and closed our eyes. When I became Catholic, I noticed that everyone was staring up at the crucifix when praying the Our Father. This isn't to say that Catholics don't close their eyes during prayer. It's just that I think Protestants are taught to do it more, perhaps. I don't know. I could be wrong. But if you do close your eyes when you pray, have you ever thought about why you do that? I think a big reason is that we are trying to block out distractions and focus on the prayer. However, there are times when it's very bad for me to close my eyes while praying because if it's a longer prayer like the rosary, I run the risk of falling asleep, especially if I've been lazy and put it off till the end of the day. But have you ever thought that the reason we close our eyes is to try to attempt union with God in the castle of our soul? Before this book, I never even considered that. It's something that St. Teresa is going to bring up today in our readings, but it's not the meat of what we're going to be talking about. I just thought it was interesting to think about, and it kind of piqued my curiosity. The meat of what we're going to be talking about is a kind of prayer that involves recollection. So our readings will be from the fourth mansion, Chapter 3, numbers 1 through 3. But first, a word from our sponsor, Chrism Press. Science fiction comes alive in an exciting debut from Mary Jessica Woods in Chrism Press's Mark Maker. The truth is hidden, but Marikel Syrinx has the power to reveal it. On an ancient generation ship, tattoos define identity. But when Marikel breaks his oath, he discovers the truth behind the misery of the outcasts. Mark Maker is a mesmerizing tale that will leave you wanting more. Go to chrismpress.com to purchase your copy, and if you use the code PILGRIM15, you get 15% off your first order. Okay, let's see what St. Teresa has to say to us today. The effects of divine consolations are very numerous. Before describing them, I will speak of another kind of prayer which usually precedes them. I need not say much on this subject, having written about it elsewhere. This is a kind of recollection which I believe is supernatural. There is no occasion to retire nor to shut the eyes, nor does it depend on anything exterior. Involuntarily, the eyes suddenly close, and solitude is found. Without any labor of one's own, the temple of which I spoke is reared for the soul in which to pray. The senses and exterior surroundings appear to lose their hold, while the spirit gradually regains its lost sovereignty. Some say the soul enters into itself, others that it rises above itself. I can say nothing about these terms, but had better speak of the subject as I understand it. You will probably grasp my meaning, although perhaps I may be the only person who understands it. Let us imagine that the senses and powers of the soul, which I compared in my allegory to the inhabitants of the castle, have fled and joined the enemy outside. After long days and years of absence, perceiving how great has been their loss, they return to the neighborhood of the castle, but cannot manage to re-enter it, for their evil habits are hard to break off. Still, they are no longer traitors, and they wander about outside. The king, who holds his court within it, sees their goodwill, and out of his great mercy desires them to return to him. Like a good shepherd, he plays so sweetly on his pipe that although scarcely hearing it, they recognize his call and no longer wander, but return like lost sheep to the mansions. So strong is this pastor's power over his flock that they abandon the worldly cares which misled them and re-enter the castle. I think I never put this matter so clearly before. To seek God within ourselves avails us far more than to look for him amongst creatures. St. Augustine tells us how he found the Almighty within his own soul after having long sought for him elsewhere. This recollection helps us greatly when God bestows it upon us. But do not fancy you can gain it by thinking of God dwelling within you or by imagining him as present in your soul. This is a good practice and an excellent kind of meditation, for it is founded on the fact that God resides within us. It is not, however, the prayer of recollection, for by the divine assistance everyone can practice it, but what I mean is quite a different thing. Sometimes, before they have begun to think of God, the powers of the soul find themselves within the castle. I know not by what means they entered, nor how they heard the shepherd's pipe. The ears perceived no sound, but the soul is keenly conscious of a delicious sense of recollection experienced by those who enjoy this favor, which I cannot describe more clearly. My oldest daughter recently graduated from Kansas State University, the very university where her father and I graduated from. So, to attend her graduation in Manhattan, Kansas, we drove the long haul from Virginia to Kansas. It's been a long time since I was on the grounds as a student, and a lot has changed. Now, I've been back to Manhattan since the day I graduated, obviously. I'm a big K-State fan. I've been back to go to football games, just to visit Manhattan for the day, and several times to drop my daughter off for school at the start of each school year. Each time I'm back in Manhattan, it's a great feeling. I love the Little Apple, as it's affectionately called. It's fun to drive around town and see all the sights, to see how things have changed, and my husband and I love to reminisce about our time there as students. Yet, on each of these times that I've been back, I felt somewhat removed from there. It's no longer my home, and for 20 plus years, I've been traveling around the world. So in a way, I feel a bit on the outside now, but not in a bad way. It's not a bad feeling. It's been good to be an alumni and cheer for my team from afar and enjoy reading about all that the college is doing and how they are growing. But something happened at my daughter's graduation when I was sitting there waiting for her and the other students to walk in. It was like I was transported back in time, and I was so keenly aware of what it felt like to be a student again. It was like all the moments of my life then and the first year of my marriage came flooding back to me in the most profound way. The recollection of that time really stirred me, and it brought tears to my eyes. The day that I graduated, I was pregnant with my daughter, and here I was witnessing her graduate. But in that moment, I felt like that 22-year-old young woman again. And it's a hard experience to describe, but it was more than just reminiscence. It was a true remembrance of who I was and what I felt at 22 years old. I was completely wrapped up in that experience for a bit, and when that passed, I was acutely aware of how much my life has changed. And it's not as if I don't know, but I was grateful for that brief bit of insight. So how does this relate to what St. Teresa is talking about today with recollective prayer? Well, this is the best way that I could think to reflect on what she's saying. Most of the time, our prayer is fine, even good. We meditate, we sit with God, we open our hearts to hear His voice speak to our souls. We set aside time to focus on Him and commune with Him in this way. It's important, and no matter if our prayer time is good, bad, or ugly, as we've learned, it's still important to show up and do it anyway. We do gain something from it. Just as St. Teresa said today, it's good to meditate on God and how he dwells within us. And I liken this to the early part of my story where I talked about all the times that I've been back to Kansas State since I've graduated. I go, I drive around, I visit favorite places, I reminisce, and I really enjoy the moment. And it's good for me. It's good for my spirit and my soul to be there and kind of relive those moments. But when I'm not in Manhattan, I still think about it from time to time, but it's not at the forefront of my mind. So I'm like a bit on the outside and feel a bit on the outside from what is going on there. St. Teresa says, quote, "After long days and years of absence, perceiving how great has been their loss, they return to the neighborhood of the castle, but cannot manage to re-enter it," unquote. In my analogy, I've felt this way, kind of on the outside of the place I once belonged. And I've been back, but it's not the same. Then, though, she writes, quote, "Like a good shepherd, he plays so sweetly on his pipe that although scarcely hearing it, they recognize his call and no longer wander, but return like lost sheep to the mansions. So strong is this pastor's power over his flock, they abandon the worldly cares which misled them and re-enter the castle," unquote. Speaking of prayer, the recollective prayer that St. Teresa is talking about, it is then that we really enter into our souls. Quote, "Without any labor of one's own, the temple of which I spoke is reared for the soul in which to pray. The senses and exterior surroundings appear to lose their hold, which the spirit gradually regains its lost sovereignty. Some say the soul enters into itself," unquote. I think recollective prayer is like what I described when I talked about having that profound experience before the graduates walked in. I wasn't planning for it. I wasn't even really thinking about my old days. It just happened, and I was given this great insight. Recollective prayer isn't ecstasy, I don't think, but it's definitely a profound experience brought on by God. It allows us to have an intensely meaningful prayer time with God where we lose ourselves a bit within Him. Now, I would guess that St. Teresa is going to explain this even more, and she's going to show us that as we move through the mansions, these types of prayer times happen more frequently as we drop the things of this world and focus more and more on God. I think that's where we're being led, but we shall see. But we'll stop there, Catholic pilgrims. It's getting deep, but that's good. We need this to stretch and grow our understanding of the spiritual life. But to be sure, I will see you back here soon. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.